Alright, so this is the new Leigh hold down clamps. We have a bench hold down clamp which fits regular bench stock holes, has a speed nut for fast on and off, so it's quick and easy. Works on standard 3/4 inch bench holes, or with this nut you can spin off, put a fender washer on top, and then this fits 1 inch dog holes, or you can drill just a standard 3/8 hole for the thread. Cam action clamping, of course. 3-inch capacity, as you can see here. Clamps like that. And then this is the surface clamp version. This, we supply these anchors. It'll be a sintered steel part. Basically, you drill 1.5 inch diameter hole, 5/16 deep. This is your drill guide for the screws. Drill all the way through. Turn the anchor 180 degrees. Now you have access from below to drive the two machine screws in that we supply, and that holds the surface clamp. Tighten it up and it works like that. And then of course it will also work in standard T-track. So the advantage of the surface clamp is somewhere where you can't have anything underneath, say for a table sled or something like that. And we supply package of anchors if you want more anchors for placing it somewhere else. And that's the Leigh hold down clamps.
Pricing and availability?
Pricing is going to be $49.95 each, suggested retail, and they'll be available from most of our dealers like Woodcraft, Lee Valley, Rockler, companies like that.
This is our jack plane. This is a little block plane that we've just developed. It's built with the same principles as my other planes. We've got a 4-plane, a smooth plane. And you can see they're made in various woods. This one was mesquite. This is cherry and quarter sawn maple. Our little block plane is Jatoba and East Indian rosewood. And I can show you some of the differences in our plane. We use a small insert cutter, just a real thin, small cutter that's captured. You can see it in there, so it's captured in this frog, and this is a backup iron here, and so it's a very solid setup when it's all put together. I like to say it's a 3/4 inch cutting iron. And then we can also do a carbide insert cutter. This is a double-sided cutter that's able to be resharpened. And so that's something we're doing new, and we can do that in the block plane or the bench planes. They work like a regular bench plane, obviously. The adjustments are a little bit different. This knob in the back is what locks your frog, and you loosen this and then adjust your depth with these two knobs here and then retighten it. So it's a very simple process. The mouth opening is able to be changed just by loosening this knob and moving these two screws, and that will open and close the mouth opening, and then just relock that. The main reason I developed this, and the main advantage, is that the iron doesn't need to be ground. And we have a little jig that you can sharpen this just by honing it. So that's the main advantage. They're cheap. They're only $6 a piece, so you can buy several of these, and maybe you want to put a camber on one, or maybe you want to have another one that's straight. And so you can, or maybe you want to sharpen 3 or 4 at a time, take them to the job site and use them, and you can have several and always have a sharp iron that way. We also have a scraper frog. This is new, that you can insert into any of the planes in replace of the main frog, and it becomes a scraper plane. So it's all adjustable from the bottom, and then we have a little bowing screw here that will bow that out. And so Here we have a pretty nasty piece of walnut board. And we can scrape that and not have any tear out. This plane here is $155. The prices on the bench planes range from $199 for a smooth plane to a rosewood joiner would be $295, I believe. So between $200 and $300 for the bench planes.
The whole idea behind a small machine, a tabletop machine, is to bring CNC to people that up till now haven't thought CNC was a possibility. The size of this machine allows us a 2x3 working envelope, so we can do a full cabinet. We actually pre-cut blanks for the show, 2 foot by 3 foot, cut a right side cabinet, a left side cabinet, and then 2 other pieces, and had a full cabinet assembled. So we can use it for real work. Beyond that, then, to use it for decorative, for carving cabinet doors or for carving signs, it'll do a really fine job of that. The spindle that we use is a 24,000 RPM spindle. That means that it's rotating at 400 revolutions per second to give us a really high quality of finish. When you're comparing sort of small, light machines, what we're trying to do is to build in some ruggedness, some sturdiness into the machine. We start by making the machine frame out of cast iron. This machine weighs in at close to 500 pounds. We've also built in some flexibility in that we have a T-slot table mounted on the machine, and then we have made on the machine with the machine a vacuum table, gone to the local Home Depot store, hooked up a vacuum, then to a $49 shop vac. So now I've got a fully operating nested base machine as well as a wood carver. We put unusually good quality components on it, ball screw drive and sealed recirculating ball screw drives here and sealed recirculating bearings here. So that'll give us long life and very smooth motion.
This is the brand new track saw from DeWalt. The DeWalt track saw is basically like taking a, instead of carrying your work material to a table saw, you take your table saw to the work material. So this gives you the ability to cut straight lines on sheet goods or on a floor without having to do a lot of marking, setting up clamps and everything like that. Basic principle is, it rides on a track. DeWalt track saw is available in a corded and cordless version. So depending on your needs, you can run a cordless or run it on a cord. We have 3 different tracks available. We have a 59-inch, we have a 102-inch, and we have a 48-inch track. They're also, you can migrate them together to make as long of a track as you need. DeWalt track saw is a forward plunging saw. So it's very intuitive. It's like using a handsaw. It's able to bevel up to a 47 degree. It's able to cut up to 2.5 inches deep. Let's give it a try. The track saw is great because it cuts right against this edge. So you can see that's a smooth edge. And again, if you sight down the piece of scrap material, even that thing's very straight. This is something that no other plunge saw or track saw has in the industry right now, and that's an anti-kickback feature. And by disengaging that mechanism right there, I can still move the saw forward, but it will not move back on the track. So if you get into a bind-up situation, the saw is unable to fly off the track basically and mar your work material or ruin your track. Along with the track and the track saw, we make a T-square attachment that'll fit right into the track so you can get repeated 90-degree cuts. We also have a miter gauge so you can have repeated miter cuts. We have clamps that fit in the track as well, so if you're working on a piece of material that's very expensive and you don't want to risk this track moving while you're operating the saw, slides right in the track, you clamp it in place. Another great feature is, if you want to run a router on our track, you can do that. The advantage to this is if you're trying to do a sink in a countertop, you can set this track up, do your plunge cut with the router, you're going to have straight lines. Track saw is going to be launching at the end of October. It's going to retail from anywhere between $499 and $700 for the corded version. The cordless version is going to be more expensive, obviously, anywhere between $700 to $900.
Mark, what we have here is our new 18-inch bandsaw. And I got to tell you, this has been a fun project. We've been in development for about 3 years, since 2005. And I think maybe the best way to describe its development is, for lack of better verbiage, a retaliation on some industry trends. And you know as well as I do, you look back and see machines that have been built over the years, and they start out pretty good integrity, and then they become a product of subsequent cost reduction activity. And suddenly one day you wake up and the machine's not near what it used to be, and you compare the old and the new. And so what we did here is we went from the ground up, compromised nothing in the quality and the integrity of the machine, and that's a product of what we've done here. So what I'd like to do is show you some of those features to illustrate that very point. You take a look at the fence here, and this is somewhat reminiscent of what you would see on a table saw. The locking mechanism, we would call this our AccuFence on our table saw line. Subsequently, we have the slides that can be removed. The side plate. We put into a secondary position here. Of course, we know the implications here is that this guard assembly can be lowered almost all the way to the workpiece for ripping thin strips here and protect your hands from this exposed blade. Okay, if we pull this off, we can also replace with a drift pin. I'm not a drift pin, this is a resaw pin. Okay, yeah, a resaw pin can be put on here and moved into position. Okay. So a high quality fence we think will be appreciated on this saw. We go up through the guidepost assembly here. There's some neat features going on here. Full 18 inches of resaw here, okay? And also 18 inches of throat. We've adopted the European methodology of guarding all four sides of the blade. And if you could come around here and look, you'll notice a neat feature here on the thrust bearing. What we've done is we've tried to make this saw work well for both resawing and then for maybe small type scroll work, where we have actually a stabilizer function built into the thrust bearing where it can encapsulate the back side of the blade. So little things like that, totally toolless adjustments. Those are all improvements that we want to take a look up here at the wheel. I think hopefully the first thing you notice is the heft of the wheel. Cast iron, a lot of inertia here. The devil's in the details. It's things like this when you look at a tension rod that has a very strong square Acme thread here. This is something that when you grab a hold of it, you know you got a tool and not a toy.
Right.
Okay. Take a look at the bottom of the saw here. Obviously another hefty cast iron wheel. Dust collection at 2 positions. Try to collect as much as you can at the source. And if that doesn't work, persuade the remainder into a secondary port. Okay. Foot brake there. That's electrically interlocked for the motor. If you tap that, it'll disconnect voltage to the motor, and subsequently you can stop it if you press on it. Okay. Maybe we'll come around to the back side of the saw and show you some features there. As you know, blade detensioning is a good idea when the machine's not in use for a while, and making that easy is what we try to do here. There's the detention position for the lever. We've seen this in the industry, such as the Carter detention system. And subsequently on this side, we have full blade release. Okay, so we put that back to the tension position. You can see we've exaggerated the scale here. And with that big Acme thread, you can get to where you're going rather quickly, rather than too many turns of that hand wheel to get to your destination. So, tracking adjustment here. Okay, we put in a tracking lock, so that as you make that adjustment, you can lock it into position and maintain that setting. Okay. Come down here. We'll see the table tilting function. We'll loosen that up. This will tilt with a hand wheel. And if you look at bandsaws on the market today, if you ever want to go in the negative position, typically there'll be a stop bolt and a jam nut here. I first got to go positive, remove the stop bolt, go negative. I just signed up for recalibrating all that when I come back to the 90-degree position. But if you do things like this, just make a removable plate where that bolt can hide away when you're in the negative position. Now it can come back, and I have it signed up for a time-consuming recalibration of that bolt. Okay. Let's take a look at the motor here. 5 horsepower only. We got a single and 3-phase. So we think, you know, with that collection of features and the heft of the machine, hopefully delivering on that original statement, we built this from the ground up with integrity first and foremost in mind.
This is a brand new Delta Unisaw, totally redesigned from the top to the bottom. We proudly have the Made in the USA sticker on this saw, and we're very excited about this saw. Had a lot of positive response here at the IWF show here in Atlanta. When you look at this saw, one thing you'll notice is the tabletop, substantially bigger than our previous unit. We have this tabletop cast and ground in North America. Okay? We don't bring this in from Asia, we bring it in North America so we can control the quality of our cast iron top and ensure that it's flat. As you look at the top of the saw, what you'll notice is the guarding. Improved guarding. Very easy to take the guard off. Very easy to take the kickback fingers off, and you'll see that riving knife, which we can adjust by handle in the front of the saw to blow the blade, or we can pull it out if need be. The nice thing about this, a lot of the guards previously we had on saws were somewhat difficult for people to operate. Here, with this execution, you can very easily take it off, put it back on, using the riving knife position, or with your end kickback fingers and guard on the saw. You also notice a red button here. We have a spindle lock. Spindle lock on this saw locks that blade in place. One wrench to loosen that nut and remove the blade. I'd like to show you the drawer. We have storage in the drawer for blades, for the guards, for inserts, and also have a very large wrench. So you don't have a situation where you're banging your knuckles into the blade. So very easy access there with that spindle lock to remove that blade with a very large wrench. Our one-piece cast iron trunnion system here is totally redesigned. Totally redesigned. The reason why we had to redesign that is because of our upfront controls on the Unisaw. You'll see you have your bevel, you have your height adjustment on the saw right up front versus the side. The heavy-duty one-piece cast iron construction allows us to do that. Inside the saw, you'll notice there's a blade shroud. You know, it's very important for dust collection. What we do is incorporate the blade shroud with the dust hose, which exits the back for effective dust collection. If for whatever reason some of that dust does not go through that shroud and goes in the cabinet of the saw, our connector on the back of the saw allows for removal from that shroud as well as from the cabinet simultaneously. So we've improved the dust collection significantly on our saw. The Biesmeyer fence system, one of the most popular fence systems in the industry, is included with this saw, and we've improved it even better. The fence and table board, improved that to make sure we don't have situations where it will warp over time. Previously on the Biesmeyer table was solid wood supports throughout, which in humid, damp environments could have a tendency over time to warp, which would make sure that this wasn't flush to your cast iron. We changed our configuration with a metal frame, steel frame all the way around, steel runners going across underneath to allow for a solid structure here that's not going to warp or twist for that customer. It'll be available in 3 horsepower, 5 horsepower as well, and you'll have it in 2 sizes. You'll have a smaller 36-inch and you'll have the 52-inch size as well. Mobile base will be available for the saw.
General International has created a new style of bandsaw, an expandable bandsaw that will allow you to do any size of bandsaw blade in length between 93.5 inches and 106 inches. To contrast to a traditional style bandsaw, the conventional C-shaped cast iron frame is usually split in the back post. It allows for a riser block that will give you 12 inches under guides. The problem with using a riser block on a C-shaped cast iron frame is it alters the continuity of the machine itself. So what we've done is we've taken a fully loaded bandsaw. When I say fully loaded, this is a 15-inch machine. It has cast iron wheels, rack and pinion on the front end for raising and lowering the guide and guard system, built-in work light, quick release tensioning, opposing ball bearing blade guides. This is a 2-speed machine. We've developed a rack and pinion system also for the table for tilting it, and a readout which will tell you which angle you're setting the table at. So those are the standard features that come with this machine. We've incorporated a little laser light into it, and it of course comes with the rip fence for resawing. Traditional thinking right now, people look for 12 inches under guides for resawing. This machine now, because it gives you the ability to move between a 93.5 and a 105-inch blade, we've given you the ability to raise and lower the upper wheel so it'll accommodate any length of blade that you may have. So if you're doing fine work, you may want a 93.5-inch blade that will keep the distance between the guides a little closer. If you're going to do resawing, you'll use a 105-inch blade, which will give you the 12 inches under guides.
This is the Laguna Driftmaster fin system. The Laguna Driftmaster fin system is designed to be adaptable to not only our saws, but to other saws, and it's a retrofit fin system. And it gives you advantages over other fin systems in that it is a high-low fin system, just like our others are, but that is done with a tool-free change. Simply loosen the fence, slide it off, and you can flip it from high to low position without any tools and lock it back in place. It also offers you the advantage to draw it back and use a little more on the infeed side if you're feeding long stock through, just like you would a European style fence on a table saw. And that can be positioned just with the quick twist of that. Also, one of the things that we find that people don't do is they don't adjust the drift on the bandsaw often enough because it's hard to do. They have to get out an Allen wrench, and it's very difficult to do. What we've done is we made that very easy by simply unlocking a handle and grabbing a hold of the star wheel and making that adjustment very quickly, very simply. It locks in, and now your drift can be set every time you change a blade, which it should be.
Right.
Most people have failed to do that.
That's awesome.
Now this is a traditional fin system that can be locked or unlocked with a handle, and then it can be simply slid up and down the course of the rail here. But also, the threads can be engaged by simply moving the little lever from one position over to the next position. When that is moved over, it'll engage the thread stock, and as we turn the handle, the fence will move over incrementally. And you can either count turns or go to the graduation scale on the edge of the hand wheel and move it over. So if you're doing veneer cuts, rather than doing your veneer cut on the inside with a small distance to your blade, you can actually do the veneer cut on the outside of the bandsaw and leave your jointed stock up against the fence. Real quick, this is the Laguna Platinum Series mortiser. It is a slot mortiser, a European style slot mortiser that allows us to do side-to-side mortising. It'll do plunge cuts, and it runs a 3-axis table. The table will raise and lower on dovetail ways with a quick twist of a handle. This raises and lowers on dovetail ways. It uses an Acme threaded screw on the bottom, and it has a feature that you don't see on many mortisers, which is a dust collection port. It's got a 4-inch port right on the bottom that'll suck a few of the chips, although you get a few in the shop, but it'll help and aid in the dust collection on the machine. That's awesome. This one is mainly designed for doing furniture parts and small work. It has side limit stops that are at the front edge of the table. Those are simply just a twist of the knob and easily position up and down the rail, and that'll set the side-to-side travel limits for the mortise. Your workpiece can also be angled with the miter gauge that's included, and that just tilts. It's got a nice fin system on that one. That you could use a flip stop on the top here as well, so you'd have a production stop. And then the workpiece is securely fastened in place with a cam action. This is a 2-position clamp, so if you're doing larger pieces, you can move an outboard, and it clamps right on and locks right in.
And price on this one?
Price on this one, you're looking at about $9.95 for this machine.